The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. We have to do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and smeared the clay on his eyes and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back able to see. His neighbors and those who had seen him earlier as a beggar said, "Isn't this the one who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "It is." But others said, "No, he just looks like him." He said, "I am." So they said to him, "How were your eyes opened?" He replied, "The man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and told me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went there and washed and was able to see." He said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." He brought the one who was once blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus had made clay and opened his eyes on a Sabbath. So then the Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. He said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and now I can see." So some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a sinful man do such signs?" And there was division among them. So they said to the blind man again, "What do you have to say about him, since he opened your eyes?" He said, "He is a prophet." Now the Jews did not believe that he had been blind and gained his sight, until they summoned the parents of the one who had gained his sight. They asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How does he now see?" His parents answered and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. We do not know how he sees not, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask of him. He is of age. He can speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone acknowledged him as the Christ, he would be expelled from the synagogue. For this reason, his parents said, "He is of age. Question him." So a second time they called the man who had been blind and said to him, "Give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner." He replied, "If he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know is that I was blind and now I see." So they said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I told you already and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You want to become his disciples too?" He ridiculed him and said, "You are that man's disciples. We are disciples of Moses. We know that God spoke to Moses, but we do not know where this one is from." The man answered and said to them, "This is what is so amazing, that you do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if one is devout and does his will, he listens to him. It is unheard of that anyone ever opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were sent from God, he would not be able to do anything." They answered and said to him, "You were born totally in sin, and are you trying to teach us?" Then they threw him out. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him. The one speaking to you with you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord," and he worshipped him. Then Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see might see, and those who do see might become blind." Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not also blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you are saying, we see, so your sin remains. The Gospel of the Lord. There are none so blind as those who will not see. There are none so blind as those who will not see. They have eyes. They could see, but they won't. So they are the ones who are really blind, because they could, but refuse not. 3 readings today have to do with sight and with light. We have this in the first reading in the first book of Samuel. Samuel is sent by God to go find the new king of Israel who will take Saul's place, since Saul has disgraced himself. And so Samuel is sent to Bethlehem, to the home of a man named Jesse. Jesse has 7 sons. And so Samuel has been told to find the king in that household, the new king. And so Jesse presents his sons. They're very nice-looking guys, very handsome, great appearance. Samuel's thinking, it must be one of them, because they look really good. But the Lord said, no, it's not one of them. You're not seeing as God sees, seeing as people see. Because God doesn't look at all this appearance, how good-looking they are, how wonderful they seem to be. But God looks into the heart. That's what you're to do. So Samuel says, well, there must be another kid here someplace, because haven't found anybody yet. And Jesse says, well, there's the kid in the back field taking care of the sheep. He's a nobody. He's probably the youngest. And so Samuel says, well, better fetch him, because we're not eating until this kid shows up. I need to meet him. And so, sure enough, here comes the youngest, named David. Samuel looks at him with God's eyes, looks into his heart and says, there, that's the one. That's the one that will be the next king of Israel. And he anoints David, even though originally you would never have seen him. You looked right past him, this young boy. Now he's the new king of Israel. It's important for us to have light in order to see. Can't see without light. You can have perfectly good eyes, but if there's no light, you're functionally blind. Can't see anything. Can't see your hand before your face. Blind in the dark. And so we need light, and that's what St. Paul in the letter to the Ephesians this morning is saying about, you once lived in darkness, you were blind, but as Christians now you live in the light. Christ is the light. So now you see. Now you have the light. Now you can see with the eyes of Jesus. In the gospel today, we heard about the man born blind. Jesus is going to heal him. This is a greater challenge than normally. There were quite a few blind people in Israel at the time of Jesus. They lost their sight because of insects doing stuff to their eyes, or because of the glare of the desert light, or they got a disease. They had no ophthalmologist, and so there's nobody to cure them. So they just go blind. They used to see, now they're blind. But this man is different because he's never seen anything. He may not even have any eyeballs. He's born blind. So that's the one that Jesus chooses for this sign. And so he approaches the man, and Jesus kneels down and spits into the dirt. Well, that's interesting. He spits into the dirt and makes mud with the dirt, a clayish sort of dirt. And he spreads it on the man's eyes. He could have just said, okay, now you can see. And then he sees. That's not what Jesus does. Jesus goes through this ritual of making mud out of his own saliva and spreads the clay on the man's eyes. The Jewish person listening to that would say, wait a minute, that sounds like Adam. Adam was the mud man. Adam was formed by the Lord out of the mud of the earth. And in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, we hear that the Lord then breathed into that mud man, that form, breathed into his nostrils the gift of life. Became Adam. That's his name. From then on, though, Adam is not anybody's name. It's used as a term for being human or humankind. But in Genesis, it's a name. This new person is called Adam. And so that's like, wow, that's Jesus making that clay. That's like the Lord forming Adam out of the mud. So Jesus is going back into the book of Genesis for a sign, because he's the new Adam. And now he's doing what the Lord is calling him to do. And so he tells this man to go to the pool of Siloam and wash. Siloam's still there. It's a pool outside of the old city walls. And so the man does and washes the mud off, and now he sees. It's a man that's never seen before. Just think what that might have been like. He's never seen before, and now he sees. And so he comes back to Jesus. But the neighbors have heard about all this, and they want to check this out. People in those days were very nosy. They had no newspapers or TV. How they found out what was going on in their community is they talk all the time. So they're talking about this guy that used to sit as a beggar for years. His entire life he's been a beggar, a blind one. Now look at him. He's walking around. He sees. Well, that can't be right. Probably isn't even him. Probably a fake. It's some phony just pretending to be him. So they approached the man and said, "You're the ones that used to sit there and beg? Blind from your birth?" He says, "Yep, that's me." And they still don't believe him, so they go find his parents. They went witnesses. What is this guy? This can't be true. So they approach the parents of this man and say, "Is this your son?" They say, "Yes." "Was he born blind?" They say, "Yes." "Well, how does he see now?" They have no idea. They may know that Jesus had did this, but as the gospel writer points out, if anyone recognized Jesus as a special person, they would be thrown out of the synagogue. So what do the parents do? They throw the kid under the bus. They ask him. He's old enough. He can tell you himself. We're not going to tell you because you're going to throw us out of the synagogue, and we don't want that. You go ask him. He'll tell you. So they did. They approach him, and in the gospel we hear it all over again about how Jesus put clay on his eyes and healed him. Well, sure enough, they throw him out. They don't like this religious leadership. They say, "Oh, this man, Jesus, is a sinner. He can't have done this." So Jesus hears that this man had been thrown out of the synagogue, and he goes looking for him. He says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" It's a code word for the Messiah. The man says, "Yeah, I do believe in the Son of Man, and I want to find him." And Jesus says, "Well, you just did, because it's me." And so the man becomes his disciple. So now he's a disciple of Jesus. We are called to see things and people as they really are. Because this man, in that conversion experience, with his new eyes, sees Jesus for who he really is, the Messiah. He's not hung up on the law. He's not hung up on ideology or assumptions or beliefs or presuppositions. He sees Jesus clearly with his new eyes. It's amazing. Sees clearly. Now the ones who are blind on this man, these Pharisees, they're all blind as bats. They don't see Jesus at all for who he is. They have their assumptions, they have their beliefs, they have their way of doing things. This is how things are. And they will not allow the reality of who Jesus is to enter in. They fight that. It will cost Jesus his life. Fight it. They won't admit it. They won't see it. Because they just had all these assumptions and beliefs and ideologies and all of this stuff. They're blind. They had eyes, but they're more blind than the blind people because they could see, but they won't. The Talmud is a commentary book among the Jewish people. It's from the 2nd to 5th century A.D. It was written by a variety of rabbis reflecting upon the teachings of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. First 5 books called Torah. And so in this Talmud, there's a rabbi commenting about seeing. This rabbi says, we do not see things as they are. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. We don't see them as they are. We see them as we are. That's what the Pharisees were doing. They were not seeing Jesus in truth and clarity like the man born blind that was healed, who saw Jesus really. They were blinded by their own prejudices and their own assumptions and their own belief system, all of their traditions, and they couldn't see him. They were blind. They were blind because of who they are, not because of who Jesus is. And so we're called to do the same during this Lenten season. With the 4th Sunday of Lent, we're getting close to Holy Week. That's why we wear robes on this Sunday. Remind ourselves that we're very close to seeing the sun rise on Easter morning. It's just a little pink hue out in the darkness of the sky. And so we wear pink or rose as a way to remember that we're getting close. So now we need to sort of really focus in on what we're doing. And we're called to don't be blind. Don't allow yourself to be blind or blinded by others. To struggle as best we can to see things, or especially people, as who they are. These people are not your enemy. You may see them as the enemy. You may see them as the unworthy. You may see them as invaders, or you may see them as people you don't want around. Maybe you hate them. See them as other. Like them. Look different. I don't know. That's what my belief system tells me. That's not true. It's not true any more than what the Pharisees believed about Jesus. Because they were blind. Blind by their assumptions, prejudices, and beliefs. You're called, don't be like that. Allow Jesus to, in this Lent, to open our eyes. Open our eyes so that we can really see. If we do that, then we will see reality as it really is, especially when it comes to other people. We don't see them through the lens of all of our assumptions and prejudices and beliefs. By God's work, through the work of the Spirit, we see them as they really are, beloved children of God.